I want you to stay in meditation now. Go into meditation. And I want you to learn in your own mind the 5 aggregates or the 5 body-mind processes, if you've never learned them. They are a heuristic way that the Buddhists for thousands of years have, it's not working, you know, it doesn't work. That the Buddha, and I'm getting quotes, you know, and the Buddhists have divided their sort of body-mind complex in these 5 levels, which helps you to search through your body-mind processes, to look for such things as an intrinsic reality or an identity or self or whatever. So the first is the material, actually they usually call them aggregate, but I like to call them processes. So the material process. So now scan your material process as you meditate, which means you review your sense of your anatomy. You think about your flesh, your blood, your organs, your bones, your nerves, your lymphatic system, your circulatory system, you know, the organs, the heart, the kidney, the lungs, the liver, the spleen, the gallbladder, the kidneys, the bladder, the sexual organs, the muscles, and the legs and feet. So you go all through the whole body, go into the brain, and in the brain you go to the neurons, you go to the cells, the molecules, and if you want, you could go down to atoms and subatomics. And so you're looking all through your own anatomy. And when you're looking through your anatomy, and you're looking to see where it is, what it is, and if there's located in it something that's a fixed thing, that would be the intrinsic reality of your material body. And if when you take time and you do a body scan, and you look everywhere, and actually our modern knowledge of anatomy is good enough, even if you're not a pre-med or a medical person, that you sort of know there's no one molecule or atom that is you, that is just you, uniquely you. There's no barcode. There's no little homunculus inside there. That's you in your body. It's just a completely bewildering, confusing when you think of it, you think your way through it on the inside, the confusing mass of material processes. Okay, so that's your material process. And then second, you go to then the sensational process. And the sensational process is now mind. It's considered mind. And what it means is, it means that everywhere where you become aware of some part of your body, you either are feeling a sensation of pleasure, if you're sitting comfortably, or you have a nice shirt on that feels pleasant on your skin, or whatever it is. The chair is soft, or it's the tactile sensation. Or if the breeze is the right temperature, that's the sensation of temperature on the skin. Then the sensation of taste, if you have some aftertaste or what you had for breakfast, or the flower essence that you ate with the honey or whatever. And if you, so you go through all of your sensations, the pleasant ones, and then you may have a little sore spot from maybe you did some exercises and you stretched when you did yoga, have a little soreness, a little discomfort, you have to move a little. And then there's a numb feeling. A lot of your body, you're not really feeling anything particularly from, and it's just sort of neutral. So those are the 3 kinds of sensation. And then, of course, within pleasant ones, there's sort of minor, medium, and intense. And in the pain ones, same. And in the numb ones, there's just, I guess, one kind of numb one. So that's your sensation process. And it's sort of the place where the mind contacts the matter of the body. So it's the second level of process, the second aggregate, is the sensational ones. And of course, if you have had a fit of anger lately, or of obsession, or deep anxiety, you might have felt thinking, I this, or I'm afraid of that, or I'm so mad at the other, or I really need the other, or I want this or that. And maybe you had a constriction in your solar plexus, a feeling of tension in your throat. So some sensation goes along with a strong self-assertion. And so you may think that was the self. But when you look at it, analyze it in this kind of scanning meditation, your sensational aggregate or sensational process, you soon find there's no stable, unchanging thing among your many sensations, right? So then you go to the next level of subtlety, and you go to your concept aggregate, or your idea or concept aggregate or process. And now you looking more subtly at your mind, in your mind. And then, for example, even I'm looking in my mind. Those are a bunch of concepts I have. My mind, me, I, looking with the mind's eye, the idea of looking, scanning something, letting my awareness run through something. All those are ideas, actually. And even like if I feel my thumb, I kind of have the feeling in what I have a picture of as my thumb, and the nerve that goes to the tip of my thumb that is pressing on my thigh right now. So even my sense of my anatomical structure is an idea. My sense that I'm having a pain in a certain location or a pleasant sensation in a certain location is an idea. And then in there you have your name. I'm Christian, I'm Nina, I'm Bob, I'm Menla, I'm Nida, sun and moon, I'm whatever, You have your name, and you have, I'm in a room, I'm in Menla, I'm in America, I'm in New York State, I'm sitting up, not upside down, the planet is going around, it's around the sun, etc., etc. All your whole world picture is a bunch of ideas. And then, right now, listening to me and recognizing what I'm saying is also fitting ideas onto the words that I'm using, and etc. So there's this tremendous swirling bunch of images, ideas, and concepts in your mind, right? An inner expression. You can say something to yourself in your mind's ear, like when you think, I am so-and-so, without saying anything. If you visualize the central channel, it's blue in the center, with inside a reddish, dark reddish, blackish color inside it, and then with a right red channel and a left white channel, and that you're breathing into it, the 9-round breathing, and those are ideas also. And they, however, construction your nervous system, so they're quite powerful. So that's the third level, is the ideas. And when you do that, you might think like, a naive person might think, well, I'm Bob. So my name, Bob, that's the real me. When somebody says Bob, I just hop to it. But then you think about Bob, and what is Bob? Do you recognize yourself with any other name? Do some people call you Robert? Do they call you Alexander? Do they call you Hey You? Do they call you by the wrong name that isn't yours? In other words, what is in a name? Can you change your name? Do you have a middle name? Some people call you by your last name. So those, even names, don't really land on any essence. There's no essence of Bobness in me. There's no Bobhood. There's just a habitual reaction to the word Bob as a name. And so you can dismiss that there's any fixed thing in the ideational or the conceptual process or conceptual aggregate. So then you move to another level of subtlety, to the emotional aggregate, the aggregate of mental functions, a very powerful one of which is a bunch of emotions. And then, if you remember last time someone accused you of something, or something happened to you, or someone was mean to you, you felt a very strong emotion of why are they doing that, or you were angry, or you were feeling hurt, your feelings were hurt, and there was an emotion. And in a way, the stronger your I sense, like, I didn't do that, I shouldn't be talked to like that, I shouldn't have that. When you go like I, or even when you go my, about possessive about something, then you have an emotion with that. But is that emotion you? And so that's the emotional mental function aggregate or process. And then you look through all your emotions, and through your memory, through whatever you're feeling now, and you realize this kind of a cloud, or literally the Buddhists say a heap, like a pile or a heap of emotions. So you're a pile of matter, you're a pile of sensations, you're a pile of conceptions, and you're a pile of emotions. And then you come to the most subtle level of your consciousness itself. And then remember that it's your consciousness that pays attention to your emotions and your conceptions and your sensations and even to your body. And how does it do it? There are 6 consciousnesses that you can isolate functioning in your mind. And one of them is when you see something, your consciousness goes and aligns itself with your mental organ of sight and the object that you're looking at. And then it adds to that the idea of recognizing the white wall, or the sky, or the cloud, or the flower. And it does a bunch of internal things so that you can recognize what you're looking at. And so you have visual consciousness. Then when you hear things, that your consciousness aligns with your audio consciousness. Then when you smell, with your smell consciousness. When you taste, with your taste consciousness, aligning with the taste organ, the tongue. And then finally, when you touch something, your texture consciousness, your touch consciousness, which is the surface of your skin, and your mental consciousness goes with that. And then the 6th consciousness is your mental consciousness. And of course, your mental consciousness can go lots of places without aligning to your sense organs, although mostly it spends your day doing that, for seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, thinking, tasting, touching, smelling. But it also can go in and remember yesterday's tasting, touching, seeing, smelling. It can remember abstract ideas. It can think about other things. It can listen to your inner voice telling you, oh, why am I doing this boring thing? Or what should I do? Or, oh, my stomach is rumbling. Or what, I'm getting rejuvenated. You know, in other words, mental consciousness kind of goes everywhere. And actually, it is mental consciousness that is scanning all of your 5 body-mind processes. And that's what Avalokiteshvara was doing in the sutra. He was scanning through matter, sensation, conception, emotion, and consciousness. And then the more he scans it, the more complex he realizes it all is. And then he finally realizes that even whatever is in his awareness is not really fitting with his definition of matter or sensation or this and that. And all of them disappear under analysis, like we mentioned yesterday. And so that's why he then proclaimed, he saw they all lacked intrinsic reality, and they only had a relational reality through his mind's observing of them, or talking about them, or other people's minds looking at them, or looking at each other's minds even. That was all observable. But none of them had intrinsic reality. It was all relational. And so he said, no matter, no sensation, no conception, no emotion, no consciousness, etc. So I just wanted you to learn those 5 things as the inner science of the day. So you can scan your 5, usually in Buddhist texts they call them aggregates, the 5 body-mind aggregates. And which is just a heuristic way. In other words, the house of your body-mind being, your process of life, if you look through that house in those 5 levels and you don't find a fixed intrinsic identity or reality in yourself, then you're beginning to understand what is the realization of selflessness. That's what wisdom is. Wisdom doesn't look for selflessness, actually. It doesn't look for emptiness. It looks at things that we think are full, we think have a self, have an essence, that means. And we look for that self, and we look for that fullness. And when we don't find that, the mere non-finding of that is the realization of selflessness or emptiness. Okay? Now, second thing I want to share today in the inner science context, and it's very important for healing as well, has to do with ethics. And it has to do with Buddha's Darwinian theory. I think I'm the only one who teaches it like that. But I bet when I die, after I die, it will become commonplace. Did you ever wonder why creationists freak out about Darwin and they don't teach it in Texas schools? Did you ever wonder what they freaked out about? And we think of them as very backward, such people, right? They don't like that thing about Darwin. Well, the reason they are freaked out about it is that they don't want to be related to monkeys, and they racially don't want to be related to other races, and males don't want to be related to females, and they just really want to have, they have a strong sense of intrinsic identity of themselves as a white Texas male, and he ain't no monkey, you know. They will shoot you if you say something about Darwin. Now, Buddha was perfectly aware, thousands of years before Darwin, that not only are we related to monkeys, we've all been monkeys very recently. And if we act like monkeys in life, we'll be monkeys again. Plenty of times. We already were. We were every kind of cockroach. We were all cockroaches. We've all been everything because there's no beginning to life. It's beginningless. And in two senses, but I'll talk about that later. There's two kinds of no beginning. And so that's not even big news in Asia. You know, Darwin is not big news. That everybody's interrelated to other animal life forms. Although actually Buddha's view of it is more radical than Darwin, because it isn't just that our genes are shared, 98% of them with chimpanzees, for example, but we personally, we have something that Buddhists call a soul gene, or a consciousness gene, or a mental gene, you can, whatever, you can even use the word soul. And that gene hops along from life to life. And those of you who know the Book of the Dead know, in Buddhist biology, that conception of a human being, or any sentient being, who's born in a womb, at least, there are those born from eggs, and those born from moisture, and those born from the lotus, either in heaven or hell. But those born in the womb, a conception is not just the meeting of the seeds of the father and the mother, the white seed of the father, the red seed of the mother. That's not what it is only. There's a blue seed of the person coming from the previous life through the bardo, through the between state. It's very patriotic, if you're French or Russian or American, red, white, and blue. So I think the Brits are only red and white, so they can divide to the Brits. So the male blue seed hits with two seeds of the male and female, and then you have the zygote, what the Tibetans call the mermerbo, I think in Buddhist medicine, right? Or nyunurbo, and mermerbo, and all, they have all these little jiggly little things, you know, which is the first embodiment. And what happens to you when you take rebirth like that is that you are attracted to that womb because you like the parents who are getting it on. You know, they've done rejuvenation and they're feeling sexy, and their seeds come together. And then you, if you're going to be female, you like the dad specially. If you're going to be male, you like the mom specially. If your identity is like that. If you're confused, you might be hermaphrodite. There's lots of them get born like that. And you like both of them or something. And then what happens is you have like an orgasm in your subtle dream body of the bardo, because they are having, hopefully, enjoying it a little bit before the long bunch of diaper changing. And so then you pass out, and then you don't wake up for a few months. 4 or 5 months, you don't wake up.
5 months.
5 months, yeah. So that's how you get reborn, in the Buddhist mechanism of rebirth. And this is biological teaching. And so, and now what is really wonderful about, now one thing I have to say about inner science, and every science, which is why also Tibetan medicine, although it is a more ancient, maybe more sophisticated and long-lasting and long-tested science, it also is open to innovation, because Buddha said all theories and all, theories about relative reality and the processes of relative reality are interpretable meaning, he said. They can be revised. They're not absolute dogmas. Do you know what I mean? You can, you could change them if there's a better thing to do and you get new evidence and experience. You can improve on them. But of course, Buddha is a pretty sharp scientist, so you can't improve that much on the theory of karma, which is a biological theory. But it's not absolute, is what I'm saying. It's not a dogma. Don't freak out about it like that. And neither is Big Bang Theory, Standard Model. That's not a dogma. They think it is, but it isn't. Gravity, all of this stuff. They have the black holes collided. Remember Galileo recently? And it went zooming around, and they were all freaked out. Einstein was right. But who knows what that was? Might have been two demons having a wrestling match somewhere. So my point, so that's one point. But then what is beautiful about the Buddhist pre-Darwinian, spiritual Darwinian theory, spiritual in the sense that the individual spirit is part of it. The mind is part of life. You know, this ridiculous thing that the mind doesn't exist, it's all material processes, is really a century too old. It's been disproved. They themselves have disproved it with quantum physics and so on, but they won't give up because of their intrinsic identity and reality and substantiality habits. They have intrinsic habits like that. Therefore, they feel insecure if they go into the world of impermanence and insecurity, where you have to sort of go with the flow. But what is beautiful about it, now to come back, what is beautiful about the theory is it connects to ethics. This is very important. In the Buddhist theory, there's something called the tenfold path of skillful and unskillful karma, which I call evolutionary action. And I call it evolutionary because what you do changes you, and you evolve with what you do. Just like if you make your stomach go round, your belly go round 7 times one way and 7 times another way, and you get heat coming up in your body, and you can fix your prostate problems if you're male, and if you could fix your menstruation problems if you're female. If you really learn to do that, and don't overdo it and have your intestines become disconnected, but otherwise, it's a really good, great thing. I love it. And I shouldn't have digressed on that one. But anyway, so I mean, you're evolving, in other words. When you learn to do something like that, you evolve, right? So it's an evolutionary action. And there are three, there are body, speech, and mind. Now, what is the process of evolution from Buddha's point of view? Actually, it's a beginningless process, so we don't have to worry about which Big Bang or where it came from. We don't have to worry about that. Chicken and egg. There's always chickens and eggs. So, and we've been all of them. We've been eggs and chickens ourselves, personally. But luckily, we're not that now. And so that we don't worry about. But what's the ultimate state that we want to evolve toward? What's the highest way to be? The highest way to be is to be a Buddha. Males and females, humans and gods, they all can, and all animals will become one when they finally get bored with suffering. But, you know, humans have a very quick path compared to the others, if they use the path. So we have a goal, and how is a Buddha defined? A Buddha is defined as a being whose mind has identified as him or her or itself with the entire universe. So it's an infinite life, Amitabha's. Oh, I keep forgetting to bring my Amitabha statue. I'll bring it tomorrow, next day. So the infinite life is the Buddha's names. So that's a huge infinite life. And therefore identifying with everyone, and therefore feeling everyone else's feeling, and therefore being compassionate, and emanating to them whatever they need to make themselves feel better. So that Buddha is like this huge positive, fused with the clear light of the void, this huge positive energy of love and wisdom that helps all life. That's the ultimate way, because, and that's not just because he's doing good, it's also because he's blissful. Or she is blissful, or it's blissful, doesn't have to always be he. So that's the most blissful way to be, where you are always blissful, no matter what goes on. You're even blissful when someone else suffers, which enables you to help them not suffer. It doesn't help them if you've just joined them in suffering. Compassion doesn't mean that. Compassion means that your bliss helps them overwhelm their suffering. That's what it means. So you have to be a bit blissful to be truly compassionate. Okay, so if that's the goal, then anything that is skillful or virtuous or good, evolutionarily speaking, is expanding your sense of identification and not narrowing it. Anything that's bad and unskillful is narrowing your sense of identification. Like reinforcing your sense of separateness and alienation from other beings. That's bad and unskillful. And anything that reinforces your identity with other beings and your sameness with them and your embracing of them is good. Follow? So, what's the first ethical no and yes? The yes is save other beings' lives. And the no is don't take other beings' lives. And that don't kill, and the opposite being save lives. And both are in so it's both negative and positive always go together. And so when you save a life, you're identifying with that life. You're saying, I'm you, your life is important to me, I don't want you to lose it. So I'm helping you save it. And then afterwards I connect to you, and I'm a bigger person because I saved your life. And you and I are one life, and it looked to whatever tiny extent I was capable of expanding my identity like that. If I kill you and take your life away from you, I don't destroy you because you get reborn, but the real you. But I take your body away from you, and especially if you're human, that's such a precious, valuable evolutionary product, your human body, human embodiment. It's terrible. But anyway, I'm basically saying your life is not me. I don't care about you. You're a part of the universe I'm not connected to, so I'm intensifying my alienation. Do you follow me? I'm becoming more narrow as a person. I'm a killer, because I don't care about anybody else's life. Or I save everybody's life because I care about them. Do you follow? It's expansion and embrace versus contraction and separate and alienate. You get it? Then the second one is don't take other people's stuff. Don't take what is not given to you. And that means I don't care about your sense of owning that thing, of possessing that. It's just a sort of lesser form of killing. You know, you're taking their body away when you kill them. Then you take their property away when you take their stuff. So that means I don't connect to your existence and your feeling of owning something. And I just, it's all on, not mine. And then the opposite is giving them gifts. And I don't care. I know I can't ultimately own anything. It all comes and goes. It's impermanent. I'm very delighted to be able to use the occasion to be able to give it to you. And then I enjoy your ownership of it. So again, my life expands. You follow me? And then the third one is sexual abuse. And usually people translate as adultery, but that's not really the only one. And that's a really deep one in a way, because through human beings, mammals, who biologically unite to reproduce, and to join with another being sexually, that's in a normal course of things without looking about the Dharma or Buddhism or evolution or anything, where the boundary of self and other for at least a moment in most species temporarily dissolves, and they kind of melt into each other ideally. So that's a time when the human form, with the tremendous amount of ethics that you've had to do as other animals to become a human, you're the most ethical camel in the whole Gobi Desert. You help the other camels and you help the people, etc. So then finally you got to be like a human with a water truck, and more helpful to more beings. But that's how you get out of being such an animal, by being ethical, meaning other regarding in your behavior, caring about others. So sexuality is the time when such a being biologically has the visceral experience of being more than oneself and melts into the other back and forth, and then they both have the startled experience of having another self join them, at least one, if not triplets. Then there's more selves in there, so it's expanding them anyway. So my point is, that moment in biological life, to use it to fortify a sense of separateness from the other one, by raping or by abusing or using as an instrument or being harmful at the same time in some way, that's sort of violating that one lesson about transcending self and other to intensify more the sense of self. So it's another kind of narrowing of one's life form, and therefore evolutionarily unskillful, and therefore unvirtuous, and therefore evil and bad. You follow? Then there's 4 verbal ones, and the verbal ones are lying versus telling the truth. And lying means you create a false reality and trap another person into it, showing your disregard for them and isolating them off somewhere else away from you in what's unreal. Truth means you opening what you know of reality to the other, so again you're inviting them into whatever you think you may still be not. It may not be real what you're really saying to them, but at least you think it's the truth. So that's skillful. And then speech that harmonizes others and makes them friendly with each other, versus speech that makes them enemies with each other by backbiting them and so forth, creating divisiveness. And that's the second one. Again, you when they're friendly, then you're identifying with each other as friends, etc. So you're expanding and getting them to fight each other. People do that a little bit, thinking, well, I'll make them fight and then they'll be my friend. But actually, they're narrowing their sense because they're getting the friendship under false auspices. And then the third one is harsh speech, where you're using words to injure someone, versus sweet speech, where you're pleasing them, making them happy. And finally, fourth one, meaningless speech. It doesn't matter of blasphemy, it's just a matter of meaningless. And in a way, meaningless means when you speak, you're enfolding someone else in your mind. And thereby, when they listen to you, they're accepting your presence in their mind by listening to what you're saying. So if you say a lot of nonsense that misleads them, that's called meaningless speech, and the opposite of that is talking about the Dharma, about reality, and helping them be more realistic, more awakened, and so forth. So therefore you're expanding through your care for them through speech. Speech is very important because in the speech zone is where we really meet the other beings, because speech involves two beings, communication, it's very, very powerful. Mantra, is speech. Breath connects to speech, very, very powerful. Chi connects to speech, as Skandhas said. So then the last one are three of mind, and the mind ones are like the killing ones in a way, but the killing, the physical ones, killing, stealing, and sexual abuse, but they're mental. And hatred, in the mind, and malicious mind, thinking of how to harm someone, and that's in a way very powerful, even though you haven't done it, you're just thinking about it. So it's bad news to sit and have fantasies about doing harm to others. It's really bad. And similarly, the opposite being loving, and thinking loving thoughts to them is very powerful and very good. And it expands you, and you feel more connected to them. Whereas hating them makes you feel more separate. And then being stingy and covetous and greedy and wanting their things, being jealous of them, wanting to have their stuff, and then versus being generous with them and letting them have everything they want, and trying to help them have what they want. And those are, again, contracting and expanding. And then finally, interestingly, the 10th one is having an unrealistic worldview, or being deluded, and also sort of fanatical and rigid in your ideology that is deluded. Some egocentric mania or some crazy, irrational and stupid idea that's very, very unrealistic. And that's the third one, which is negative. So those three mental ones. But what's great about Buddha's biology is twofold. One, that the mind and your spirit is part of biology, and that you yourself have been part of evolution beginninglessly, and you will continue endlessly to be part of it, actually, if you don't become enlightened. And if you, in a way, you still are when you're enlightened, because then you're there for everybody else, but at least you're in bliss, so you're not driven involuntarily anymore into any kind of suffering, and you can help others free of their suffering. So that's the first thing, that you are there. In other words, you exist, and you have to be responsible for yourself, and that's more realistic than this idea that I don't really exist, I just die and then I'm not here. So no consequence to whatever I do, and no reason to be good, except whatever I can get away with, I can do. Because finally there's no result to be good or bad, so I'm nothing when I'm dead. Whereas here there's a result. You make your own world, live by the sword, die by the sword, reap what you sow, all those things are not even in Buddhism, but all world traditions really agree on that, up to a point. And even materialist science agrees. They have a thing that no energy is ever destroyed, the law of conservation of energy, but they exclude the mind, your mind, from having energy. They say you don't have any energy, you're not energy. You don't exist. That's what they really are telling us. No wonder we're all depressed. And they have a good market for their antidepressants. Seriously, they tell us you're nothing, and it doesn't matter what you do, it's an accident. Nobody else in the whole universe, Carl Sagan is out there sending out Beatles music, hoping that the aliens will come down and rock and roll or something. It's ridiculous. Really silly. In the scientific world, they act like they're so realistic, but they're completely childish, actually. I'm sorry, they really are. The idea that nothing exists, it shows that you're insane. When you think, oh, cool, I'm good. But I had too many flowers yesterday. Okay, so this is ethics, and therefore you have a reason to be ethical of enlightened self-interest, in addition to being nice to others and altruistic. And therefore altruism, it becomes realistic to be a bodhisattva, and say, I'm going to help all beings become free of suffering because I'm going to be a Buddha. But that will be good for me too. A bodhisattva is not a martyr. Like they say, Avalokiteshvara, the hero, the great hero. And great hero means, I used to translate that great Messiah. Because the idea is everybody is going to be a Messiah, which means saving other people. But that's too much for people to say, so it's called a great hero. But that's what a bodhisattva is. Bodhisattva wants to save everyone from suffering. And when they become a Buddha, apparently they become capable of doing it. Even though we ourselves think that Shakyamuni let us down. He's just sitting over there, or Amitabha, this one. And here we are still suffering, and we have to rejuvenate. But actually, he might have already helped us out as much as possible, although we just don't know that. Okay, so that's the inner science for today. And I just want to say one other thing. In rejuvenating, in healing, there are the 404 main disease categories. 101 of them are called karmic diseases. And that means which means evolutionary disease, which means the doctor can't really help you, the exorcist can't really help you, the medicine can't really help you. You have to, it's your own action, your own spiritual thing that you have to do with. And it's sort of like when a doctor says, well, it's genetic, there's nothing I can do about it. So the ethical thing, however, miracle cures can be cured. And sickness can come because the human being is very intelligent. We're very conscious, much more than we think we are. If we are living, doing unethical things, it is eating at us in a certain way, and it will harm our health, actually. So also there's a thing of ethical correction, just like, physical correction, spiritual correction, there's ethical correction. And so it really is, the Buddha is such a great scientist and such a great philosopher, which scientists should be good philosophers, not just measuring things with measuring tapes. They should also be good and analyzing their theories. And he was so great that it gives us a real motive to live consciously, live, practice, take your flowers, medicines, whatever. Don't eat, fast, walk, get a massage, and behave. Right? Is that right, Gilma? Okay, so that's the inner science. That's the ethical piece so the science connects to ethics, actually. I don't know if you know this, if you've ever studied physically ethics nowadays, like that's philosophy. But modern ethicists, because of the dominance in all universities of materialism, they basically say, well, it's nice and you should think about it because you want to be nice. But they all have to agree with their natural scientist colleagues that there's actually no reason to be ethical other than just a social, whatever you might get punished or, And so therefore they make a difference between legal and ethical. And they think that's a big different thing. Because ethical will never get you caught, And that's really harmful, as we see in our societies. People go crazy, like all those people who shoot themselves, shoot other people, do these horrible things. And even the big corporations that are burning the carbon and driving the climate off the cliff just to make money, they all subliminally have the thought that when they die, there'll be no consequence, however many people they harm. That, unfortunately, is the problem with materialism. So it's like, devil may care. Just harakiri if it goes wrong, and then I'm automatically free of any consequence. What do we call someone who acts socially with no consequence? We call him a sociopath. We call him a psychopath. So actually, the whole material culture is a psychopathic culture. Because even we blow up the whole planet, Death Star, climate change, have a nuclear war, Putin versus Trump or something. Then they're just dead. And then after they're dead, nobody cares. They're not going to get on Fox News, nothing. So what does it matter? We destroy all life. What does it matter? It's only a little accident on this planet anyway. I'm sorry, but that's at the root of our cultural problem. And Buddha carefully and he beautifully taught this in many, many ways in that literature. It is amazing, actually. My hat, it takes my breath away when you read how Buddha was talking to people, how he challenged the upper class person. Like, he said, 14 lives ago, your grandmother was like, she cleaned toilets in such and such a place, but she was beautiful, and so the king grabbed her, and then now you think you're a big shot. He was totally on their case, He was. He was totally amazing, but he always gave them a good path to follow on. He was really a great person, there's no question about it. Okay, that's enough. Thank you.